Hey everybody, sorry for the little delay and starting up. How's everybody doing? Just gonna be getting started here in one sec. Just need to finish setting up one little thing. If anybody has any questions, please feel free to ask them in the chat. And I'm just going to be getting back to these guys. What's up, Lucas FCBM? Manchester, how's it going? We're talking about Manchester as in Europe or Manchester in Pennsylvania? Ian, thanks, man. Still coming together, but we're getting there. I'm trying to just finish off the base elements first and then get back into back to the people and get their anatomy straightened out and wrap it up from there. And to be honest, I'm getting tired of this sculpt. I need to finish it off. I need to just stick a fork in it, as the phrase goes. Ah, nice. Supergirl. Sweet. Yeah, it's kind of the classic superhero ascension pose, I guess. Very Superman-like. Do you ever get tired of superheroes, Ian? I'm assuming if you do a bunch, that you've been doing a lot lately, considering the Marvel surge that has happened over the past decade or so. I'm just so tired of superheroes. I'm so tired of them. I'm ready for there to be some surge of something else that would just be a change of pace and hey, superhero show this and Marvel that. So tired of it. Or at least are you tired of the same superheroes? You know, like just the same few that we see in rotation. I hear it. Yeah, you gotta shake things up somehow, I guess, if you're doing superheroes. I mean, I get it. The public will love them always, and there's certain fans that are just they're diehard fans for whatever brand or whatever superhero it is. But yeah, for me personally, I was always aware of the famous heroes and the comics and all that, but I never got into them really. I spent my youth in and out of a comic shop, but I was mostly buying like obscure stuff by comparison, like semi-obscure. I mean, it's not as mainstream. Maybe it makes me more of a geek. I don't know, but like I love the X-Files comics. I love the show X-Files, and I remember for a long time the first few comics, the first few issues were worth like hundreds of dollars for a while, for a long time, because it became so rare and there was such beautiful cover art. The interior art really wasn't that great, but they were still interesting stories. They were very much like the show, and I think they were pretty well done for what they were story wise for a while. But and then there was like some Jurassic Park comics because I'm a huge dinosaur fan. And then I don't know, yeah. I think those were kind of my main interests. And I was really little. I think even like Sonic the Hedgehog comics when I was like single digit age. But those were my basic interests in comics. I really didn't get into the whole superhero thing. I never really, even when I was even younger, I never got into the whole just like roided out guys and like I was always about masculinity and about athletics. I mean, when I got older, but more so about keeping in shape, not even like team sports. So it was always like non-traditional. I always was like maybe in certain categories, but like on a very like more fringe area of those categories. So like I appreciated people getting in shape, but I was never into like popular team sports. Never cared about watching sports really. So I was more of an artist. More interested in science or creativity or movies than I was into a lot of the traditional mainstream stuff that most people were as kids. So I always kind of maintained my own tune. I just kind of didn't care what other people thought. But yeah, so I just never wound up really getting into superheroes. But I remember when I was a kid, my sister and I would watch Batman the Animated Series pretty religiously. That was fun. I watched Spider-Man comic or cartoon a bit here and there, but I don't really remember much. We watched the Batman show a lot more. And then there was other shows on Fox Kids. I think it was Tailspin. We loved Tailspin. Enjoyed DuckTales. the classic Disney stuff, you know, that was on then. Animaniacs, Warner Brothers. Can't wait for that to come back. Apparently, it's coming back in November on Hulu. Tiny Toons. I remember Tiny Toons. Spielberg, you know, produced a lot of great stuff. Like, I mean, you know, he was the guy behind some of that. But then I know a lot of other artists worked on it, of course, but and actually wrote it and everything. But he really led the way with some really quality pieces of entertainment that we haven't really seen. I feel like we haven't had that much, you know, cartoon or anything really like of that caliber anymore. We just don't see a lot of it. Sadly, so those were high quality animation and full orchestra soundtracks, just high quality. Like, they raised the bar. I feel like we just don't see much of that anymore, sadly. So I'm kind of excited to see what they're going to do with Animaniacs. I hope it's of the same caliber as it was back then, and not like, I just really can't stand that like graphic style, like Powerpuff Girls kind of style, and how they added that to like everything now. Ugh. Personally, it's just, I know some people love it, but like, sorry, I'm just complaining. But I'm like a crotchety old man, like, ugh, kids today don't know quality. But yeah, I feel like there's a distinct, clear difference of quality from art and animation style. And I know it takes time. It takes a lot more time to animate that Disney quality that we saw back in the day compared to in Warner Brothers style than we have today, with like all this graphic style shortcut. But I don't know, I just feel like that style back then was superior to anything we have today. It took more artistic ability, basically. That's all it did. It took more talent or more effort than what it does to draw very basic, you know, geometric shapes. Which software are you using for this? Oh, dude. ZBrush. That's what this channel is all about. This is Pixologic, man. Hi from Mexico City. Hola. X-Files are amazing. Yes, they were. Especially like the first like 6 seasons, I feel. The first 6 or 7. Those are the best. Question. What is the best practice you would recommend for box modeling aside from basic shapes? Some advanced techniques. I'm asking this for hard surface modeling. I can complain about the lack of OG quality too. Yeah. Regarding box modeling, I'm not sure. I mean, best practices, I guess. Is that what you were asking about? I mean, it really just depends on what you're doing. I don't know. That's like asking what's the best way to sculpt anything or box model it. I mean, I would start. It depends on what you're doing. I mean, you can start with a sphere. You can start with a cube. You know, I would recommend polygroup a lot. You know, your ZModeler. Your ZModeler brush is awesome for this. You know, I don't know. It just depends what you're working on. I mean, it's just, that's like such an open-ended question. But I would say just make sure to always, you know, use polygroups. Yeah, this isn't a derp. Okay, I got it. There we go. You know, I mean, just make sure to polygroup everything whenever you're working with it, and then you can operate within those islands, you know. You know, I don't know. I mean, it really just depends on what you're doing, you know. But I don't know what you want me to show you. I mean, you gotta be a little more particular. And talk about making sci-fi guns, conceptual cars, etc. Native English speaker, speak clear. That's okay. I mean, you don't have to be, no, yeah, but just a little more clear. I mean, still, I don't really do a ton of cars. I mean, guns are pretty straightforward, I would think. But I mean, you just want to, with anything with hard surface, you just want to have clean lines, clean surfaces, right? So I think what that comes down to simply is, you know, maintaining the right amount of edge loops to maintain your form, and just being very, very rigid, you know, in your operations. You know, you don't want to really use, unless, that's the thing with sci-fi too, that's so general still. Like, are you doing organic sci-fi weaponry, or are you doing like really, I mean, hard surface, I would assume you're doing more rigid stuff like Star Wars kind of style guns, or concept cars are obviously very fluid. That's going to be different. I mean, I think there still seems to be an optimal way to design cars, which would probably be more along the lines of NURBS, I guess. I think that's still how they do most car models. I don't really model cars at all. I don't have any fear of doing them. I just don't have any interest in really doing them. I've designed 1 or 2 cars in the past drawing, and I think it would be, for me, rather simple to go ahead and start doing it in ZBrush. But yeah, that's definitely, I wouldn't lie and say it's my forte though either. Obviously, I'm working on an organic model, so you'd probably be better, checking in with somebody who actually does a lot of hard surface. But in short, I would just say, yeah, I mean, use polygroups. Work a lot on the large polygons. In other words, like low cage, right? So your low subdivision level, so you can make gross movements that will then transition up to your high subdivision levels very smoothly. So those are best practices. Yeah, I mean, otherwise creasing, crease your corners, add creases, add an extra poly loop or an extra, edge loop or two around any central areas you want to make sure they're tight if you're not creasing them already, or if you just want to have a nice transition, segment or space your edge loops accordingly. I mean, that's very general though, it's a matter of just going in and doing the work, I think in the end, finding good reference. It's the best I can really say. What is important to take into account when modeling with 3D printing as the final objective? Yeah. Yeah, this is ZBrush, guys. Where are you guys joining from that you don't realize this is Pixologic, man? This is ZBrush. So this is so random. Use dynamic subdiv. Yeah, subdiv. Preview hard surface shapes. Yeah, that's another way to do it. What is important to take into account when modeling with 3D printing as a final objective? Well, something that's important to take into account is that you don't have to worry about UVs. You don't have to worry about. I don't know. I say my philosophy, a very basic one with modeling for 3D printing, is don't think so much about 3D printing until the end, because you don't want to start dictating what you can and can't model for 3D printing based upon your preconceived notions of it. Just create, right? And then chop it up and figure out orientation and how to create parts, that will interact. I mean, otherwise it's just, maybe if you don't have to boolean certain pieces together, then don't. So then they're always separate and they're clean. So that would be one thing I would say to keep in mind, I guess, is don't dynamesh everything together if you don't need to for your artistic flow, for your sculpture. So I would say keeping a weird philosophy to me is actually keeping artistic integrity. Meaning just stay with your vision of whatever you want to create, and then reverse engineer it to be 3D printable, so that you have an incredible piece by the end of it, right? And not something that looks like, oh yeah, I'd expect that to be coming off a 3D printer, and because that's how I operate anyway. It's just to create things that are just try to blow people away with something that's in front of them, not have them look at it and say, oh yeah, I've seen like a billion of these things printed before, like, or anything else similar, then I think you've lost it. You've lost the battle for impressing upon people, a great work of art. You got to create stuff that it's just however you envision it, and just go from there. Other best practices, you have to make sure that you have basic stuff, like sealing up your holes. Probably want to decimate things after a while, because you don't want to be dropping in millions and millions of polys here and there. You can if you need to, but still, unless it's really large, once you've hit like the million mark, you may not see most of that detail. Maybe with a magnifying glass, but who's going to be looking at it that closely? It's cool to show off like a printer's resolution if you can actually only see something with a magnifying glass, certain detail, but overall the naked eye won't ever perceive that. So you can usually decimate things to a few 100,000, even 500, 600,000, you could probably still perceive some of that, depending on what the details are and the size, but yeah, in general, you'll see some of the best practices here, probably in the next few streams down the road, but yeah, I don't know, there's not from the sculpting standpoint, there's not a lot of things I would say you have to do. I would say avoid trying to do too many specific tasks to prepare anything for 3D printing on the outset, because there's not much I think that you really need to worry about while you're sculpting. So much. It's counterintuitive, I guess, in that I think it's really more about sculpting whatever you want and really sticking to your guns in that department and not worrying so much about the printing side of things, because you really can figure out a way to print pretty much anything, almost anything, I would say. Obviously certain things like this where you have to have a mass to make dust clouds, which you could have as particulates in CG, but in reality that would never hold. So that's why I mean, like, pretty much anything. There's obviously going to be things you can do in any 3D package, or a lot of 3D packages, that you cannot print, but that's because it wouldn't work in the real world regardless, you know. So you have to figure out another roundabout way of doing that. Imagine export in it Unreal Engine 5 straight without decreasing polygon. Yeah, that's coming, man. I can't wait for Unreal Engine 5. I'm really looking forward to that, actually. I'm still getting to terms with Unreal 4.25, but it's exciting stuff, man. It's pretty incredible. Unreal's really leading the way, man. It's I think they're probably one of the most exciting pieces of software out there now, you know. They're making some pretty awesome moves. I've got to really just commit more time to get into terms with all of it, because it's a lot, man. It's a lot, and in that it's a whole new workflow too. You know, some things are similar, and some things are very different. So it's just kind of like conditioning yourself to think, you know, in the terms of the new software that you're using. That's always a challenge, and just learning the whole new, you know, the whole new workflow. Yeah, exactly. And not worrying about levels of detail would be great. Yeah. When was the first moment I felt proud of my work? Show it to people. Yeah. I mean, I guess it's probably like around the time I finished one or two of my first pieces for a course I was taking online. I felt proud because I took a 2D image and made it 3D, and it was by a buddy of mine who I really respect and whose work is gorgeous, Justin Gerard. He's this great illustrator. I met back in my college days, and then found out years later that he was this really, not that it was any surprise really, because he was amazing back in college already, but to my surprise, just found out that he'd become a pretty prominent illustrator in the illustration world, really. And yeah, so I saw one of his pieces that really connected with me, and then I asked him if I could have his permission to make it 3D, and he said sure. And so I went ahead and sculpted. It's a flying sea turtle with a girl in a dress sitting on him, and some fish flying around her. I could do a better job today for sure, but still, the final piece I thought turned out pretty good. I would definitely touch up some things from my end today to match better what his work was like. But it was my first complete piece that I ever did in ZBrush, and it's still in my portfolio. Toward the end of it, the portfolio, if you scroll back through there, if you go to my site, you can always check it out and check out a bunch of my other stuff. Here is my site if you would like to check anything out. This is my portfolio. I don't really update my ArtStation that much, so that's why I just keep my site updated. I think you're saying I think 2D industry is not so much lucrative compared to 3D, especially nowadays when there's tons of sites offering free material. Yeah, I mean, I think we're going to be surprised at how much things change in the next couple of years here with AI and other elements kind of helping artists and assisting art directors and whatnot. There's going to be a shift, I think, for sure. And you're going to have to be more creative and more oriented to 3D, I think. I mean, there's always going to be work for both artists, for 2D and 3D, but I just think the future's more 3D because it's more useful. You know, I mean, 2D is great for a quick sketch and to get out your ideas, but when it comes to, like, you know, large amounts of variety that you can do with one piece, and large amounts of options, when you have a lot of options, I mean, sorry, my brain's in, like, several places at the same time. You have a lot more usage for a 3D model, you know, than you do for a 2D image. 2D images are great for concept, I think, and for beautiful, you know, if you really want to do elaborate paintings, you know, if that's really where heart is, then go for it. But it just feels like there is a ton of options, including two-dimensional imagery, of course, from 3D objects. If you just want to use it as a base to then paint on top of, you know, that there's always that too. And it just feels like that 3D will always be a bit more useful. But there's also going to be a lot of AI auto-generated content coming, and there's programs now already that are in beta being used by other people that can generate, just by you speaking to them, they can generate, you know, create. There's this great example, I think. I forget what the software is called. I gotta look it up again, but I think it's I don't know, have to look it up. But you can create content by just speaking. It has voice recognition, where you can just say create an 80s bedroom, and it creates an 80s style kid's bedroom just like immediately. Like, as you say it, it puts it together very quickly. And then you say, oh, I want the floor to be hardwood. I want it to be like mahogany color, cherry oak. I want there to be an old CRT TV and a PlayStation, and it'll just populate all this stuff. It'll just create it right in front of you. It's nuts. So things like that, you know. So it's the things that exist already that you can have automate. I think things that you really can conceive in your own head, that'll be something that'll still be unique. But we're coming to a new era, man, where things are going to be changing, and it's going to be awesome and kind of scary at the same time, because it'll be harder for people to really I don't know, I think for companies to find value in certain types of artists, you know. Like anything that could be bought stock, or anything you could probably create a custom with this AI, and so you get it for, you know, the same kind of pricing or speed that you would with something stock, but it would be custom to whatever your ideas are in general. But then there would need to be a lot of tweaking, so it'd still kind of be like a concept artist giving you a drawing, and your art director saying, all right, follow this, but then let's rework it a little bit, you know, or figure some things out. It'll kind of be like that, except it'll be much more further along, I think, in that it'll be a 3D object already that you can work with. And in some cases, it may be exactly what they want just from the AI. So it's pretty crazy. We're coming to a new place. I don't know. So the 2D industry in general, just from that statement, yeah, it does sound really cool. I know, I've seen it in action. It looks amazing. The 2D industry not being lucrative, I mean, it just depends. If you're someone new, I mean, it's like, I feel like it's almost still like it's indie industry. You have to be incredible at what you do. You have to be excellent at what you do, and great with networking with people, you know. So there's definitely competition, and that's the intimidating part for for a lot of young artists is that you know, there's always going to be that level of the experts and the more senior folk, you know, landing the gigs that a lot of younger artists would love to have, and that's just how it always goes. And then eventually, those younger artists, if you stay determined enough, hungry enough, and work hard enough, you eventually get to be one of those junior and senior artists working on stuff that you'd want to work on. You know, but that's again, certain people don't realize like they don't get to be their own creative person in every single way. You know, there's a lot of kids who start working for Disney and then leave because they thought that they were going to get to just create every day and be told, "What's your idea for this?" and "Give us something like this." And you know, there's such a lack of creative freedom in a lot of production houses, and a lot of people don't understand that. I mean, as long as you're okay with that, you know, it's a thing. It's not a bad way to make a living. I mean, come on, I've done it a bunch. You get to work on a production that you enjoy. It's not bad at all. But it can get repetitious depending on how long you're on the same project, or you know where you're at, or if the studio isn't treating you well. So there's a lot of other factors that come into play down the road. But anyway, yeah. As far as 2D goes, I think is it lucrative? I mean, there's just I wouldn't say it's not completely, but I would agree, or I would say that there is a lot of competition in it, and so it makes it harder to make a living, yeah, because there's so many people competing in the same space. That's why it's like, everyone's going left, you go right kind of thing. If everyone's doing this, you want to make some money, maybe do something slightly different, helps you stand out, makes you, a commodity. It makes you something that's of value because not everyone's doing it. So you've created a new niche for yourself, And so I think that's important, is that people figure that out. I'm kind of torn here because this feels a bit more realistic, obviously, like these kind of billowing dust clouds versus the very stylized swirls over here. I feel like I got to kind of I got to take this back a little bit and make it more of like a in between, right? In between that and this. So add a little bit of that in here and vice versa. I like some of the curls, but I feel like there's a bit too many here. And it's just distracting too. Because I want the focus to be on the couple, on Cupid and Psyche, and not on the decorative clouds so much. One more thing about 2D is everybody can step into it easily, one being very few and cheap software required, like Photoshop, Illustrator, and you're good to go. Here's 3D, one is so expensive. There's so many things you need to learn to deliver a 3D product, like model UV, sculpt, texture. That's why 2D has got so saturated. Yeah, for sure. I mean, 2D is way more accessible. It's one of the most ancient forms of art we've ever had, right? Excuse me. It's like caveman drawings, right? The drawings in the caves, those are hieroglyphics. Doesn't get much more simpler than a stick in the dirt, right? Or a burnt stick on a stone wall, right? That's it's as basic as you can get. So, yeah, I think barrier to entry in 2D is pretty low. Piece of paper and a pencil, and you're good to go. Scanner, but that's why I said I think that people who are just more advanced painters, they'll just have a lot more odds of getting the work that people would like to do in 2D. Or those who are just incredible illustrators. But it's a thing, you got to be amazing. There's a lot of amazing artists though out there, for 2D. So yeah, I think it's hard. It's hard to stand out in 2D. But yeah, 3D is definitely intimidating because there is so much to learn. And once you learn one 3D package, you've gotten the basic idea of how to operate in any. It's just a matter of learning the new operations, or the new way of doing something within that software. Yeah. And so I have this in Dynamesh for anyone wondering. This whole mass of dust clouds, and I'm just redynameshing every now and then when I do this in the viewport. So I'm just using smooth and inflate over here to merge some of this stuff together, decrease the swirlies. Ubisoft trailer releases the Prince of Persia remake. They ruined it. It was one of the best memories of my show. Yeah, actually, I saw that on Reddit like a few days ago, and I was bummed. I was like, this barely looks like a remake. I agree. The Prince of Persia: Sands of Time was an amazing game, and this new version looks just like a slightly upgraded version from the original as far as like the cinematic quality. You know, the cinematics look. I mean, the actual game models will probably obviously higher res, but they should look at the same quality as any Assassin's Creed. Like the first Assassin's Creed looks superior to this one, right? To this remake of Prince of Persia. Yeah, I'm kind of shocked that they did such a crappy job, like such a low quality for such a great brand that I'm sure they would know. I mean, they would expect it would make a ton of money, but it seems like they're really having a lot of disrespect for such a beloved story and beloved brand. I don't know why. I don't really get that. It's really a shame. I mean, I'll still buy it, I guess, because I just want to experience it. If it has decent reviews, if people say that everything's horrible in it, then I won't bother. But the originals were so good. I am surprised that they did such a bad job with the character models and yeah, it's just the overall quality. I mean, even like the last Prince of Persia game that was realistic that they released on I had it on Xbox 360. It's called Prince of Persia: The Forgotten Sands. I think it was pretty good, and it looked better, I think, than than what we have here, practically. You know, with the new one. Yeah, it's a really weird. It's a weird thing because you would think that I don't know. It just seems like they rushed the whole modeling side of things, and the art style is it's just weird. It's really weird. It's really sad, unfortunately, because yeah, I agree. For me, that was like during my post-college years, right? So that was like early 2000s. Those were some of my favorite games during that time. It was like that and the Resident Evil remake, which was amazing on GameCube, and it was incredibly beautiful, amazingly beautiful graphics, and just great everything. And then Resident Evil 4, that was amazing back then too on GameCube when that first came out. They just did amazing jobs on those games back then. And I'm like, man, why would they not give even half that amount of love to a game made today with all the abilities we have in the last few years? I'm amazed that it turned out so poorly. It looks so bad. So yeah, it's a real bummer. It's like I would have been happy not knowing it existed, and then they have it work on it for another year or two to make it look good. And then they release it rather, I'd even be happy with them delaying it now to be like, we've heard the fans, which it's like, it's not even like fans being crazy. It's just, we want decent quality, right? Like just basic, like, fundamental like expectations. You know, just very simple, a very simple bar of quality that other games adhere to all the time, and that somehow they just Ubisoft dropped the ball, man. Ugh, bummer. OP. Fall Guys is very OP. Maked renders in ZBrush. Not sure what you're trying to say there. Brawl Stars. Hello, how important do you believe anatomy is? How can one improve likeness sculpting? Anatomy is incredibly important if you're doing characters, for sure. You know, it's just a good basic skill to have in the arts, no matter what. So it's extremely important. And that being said, don't judge me on mine here, because I haven't paid too much attention to anatomy here yet. I mean, it's very simple right now. I'll be getting more detailed later. Yeah, anatomy is incredibly important. And how can one improve likeness sculpting? I mean, just get good reference, right? That's a big part of it. And then bring them in here with Spotlight, you know, or use your see-through feature. Get your front and your profile, and if you can figure out what kind of lens they use to take the photo of the person, that's always important. And the distance, you know, of that person. You have to understand a little bit of, I think for anyone who does an accurate likeness, you have to understand camera lenses, focal length, and you know, you have to have that in mind. You have to understand that real lens, real glass, real lens distortion, and distance all factor into how someone's face looks, right? So my face looks more round in this camera, and everything here is, you know, as I get closer, it'll be more and more round, and everything's getting more fisheyed, because this is a small millimeter lens. I mean, it's just physically small, but it replicates probably like a 25 or 35 millimeter lens, maybe somewhere around there. Maybe even less. Maybe it's like even 20 or 15. I don't know. I'm not sure exactly, because they don't tell you what millimeter lens this is equivalent to, but you know, a real camera, a large camera, is going to have probably 50 millimeter or 35 millimeter is most common, but they could use a longer lens, which would compress things more and make them look more like they do in the real world, because our eyes see around like a 50 millimeter lens, they say. That's an approximate, it makes people's faces look the most as they really do in real life. So hopefully you find some reference photos with somebody who's been taken with a 50 millimeter lens or longer, and that would just, you know, I think after a certain point, the compression happens where, I mean, I guess you can only, you know, the human eye can only see clearly a face. I mean, if you're farsighted a bit further, but, you know, within a certain range, and then it just becomes a little blurry, or you can't see much detail. So really long lenses that are like, you know, telephoto lenses, that won't really help. But most people are shot with a decent telephoto lens if they're celebrities. Because the photographers are not right up in their face. So you want to model using using perspective, and then having your focal length be, you know, decently high, or at least, you know, you could do a 50 at least. And if that doesn't look right, if you match it up kind of in your, because this is the other thing in the challenge here in ZBrush is they don't really let you decide, because your camera's fixed. You can't say how close or how far your camera is, or how zoomed in you are on something, you know. I mean, it's just, you can either zoom in like this or push it back, but you don't know the exact distance from your camera, from where we're seeing, to the model, and that's a challenge. So that'll always be a little bit of a hurdle. But I found to get some pretty successful likenesses by doing an approximation. So I usually do either, like I said, a 50 or a 35, sometimes a little higher than 50, depends. And then I just bring the image in, or do the see-through, and just get a good front, a good profile, and then see if you can get a good 3/4, and just try to match it up in all those areas. And then realize that no one's face is perfectly symmetrical. So after, it's good to model symmetry on first, just to expedite the process. But then once you've gotten your ears and your nose and everything kind of sculpted to the base level, or at least they match one side of the face, because they won't always match both, then turn off symmetry, and then that's to start doing the asymmetry, right? You start bringing in the other elements of the face that are missing, they're off symmetry slightly. I don't know, that's the best I can give you for likeness. it's just time, man. It just takes time. But you'll get better at it, and you'll find that it's almost like a there's a buddy of mine who does an amazing likenesses of celebrities. Adam Bean. He's got his own clay line, I believe. Adam Bean Industries. If you look up his work, he's got some incredible likenesses. And I remember we were talking one time. We were hanging out, and I think it was like 4 or 5 years ago. No, it was like 3 or 4 years ago. It was for my birthday, actually. And it was fun. But he was saying how it's sort of like a parlor trick. You know, it's sort of like there's certain things that once you get to know human anatomy well enough, where you should start flowing with the face, and you know how to get elements to where they need to be quickly. It kind of feels like a parlor trick. It sort of feels like once you get it, and it's not really every face is always a challenge in a sense, but it's not a challenge that, I don't know. It's like saying, all right, now you've learned to do 50 push-ups, do 80 push-ups, or do 100. There's still a bit of effort involved, but you know you can do it because you did it in the past, and you've done similar, faces or whatever before, similar likenesses. So I think it's just a matter of like just doing the work, putting in the hours, and after a certain point, you'll be able to just cross that finish line and be happy. So I think that's what likenesses comes down to, really. And I haven't done some in a while, but I need to get back to one or two that I've been working on and off in the past. But yeah, I think you practice it enough, you'll get used to it, and it won't feel like it's that challenging anymore. It'll just take time. Every now and then something could be a challenge, but for the most part, I think it's just building up that skill set. It's just practicing until that certain element clicks in the brain, and then it's just like doing anything else, just paint by numbers. And likenesses, I feel, are kind of easier in a sense, especially in ZBrush, where you can do the superimposing of images, and you can line things up like that, where that's almost like tracing, really. It's like cheating. But that's if you want an exact likeness. People don't care about artistic quality or integrity. I mean, they care about quality. They don't care about integrity, meaning like I did it only from looking here and then looking there. I didn't try to trace the face, essentially, sculpt the face over. But that's, if you want an exact likeness, it's just faster to do it that way, and that's what usually any product or production cares about. They don't care about did he trace them, or did he just look left and right and compare and contrast, and they don't care. They want it done ASAP for faster and cheaper. So to give them that, the faster you can make something, and the more accurate it is, the better. So that's all that matters. It's production art. It's not fine art, really. A lot of times it's not. They don't care about the craft, really. They just want it to get done. That's why they'll scan faces too. They scan Harrison Ford's face for a model that I worked on for a Star Wars toy line, high-end collectible line. And then that was my basis, so it was like half the work was done. You know what I mean? Like, then they wanted me to de-age him and make him look younger and clean things up, and there's a whole bunch of other stuff that went involved into it. But they just did an incredible scanning job. But I've done many likenesses where there's not a scan and it's just photos, and it's so that's more work, obviously. But you're just looking at photos and resculpting them. View your videos for renders. I give the answer. I try to find high-res refs with good lighting, especially from the same field of view. There are really fine details like lacrimal gland, where to look, what to look for. You can't really see these details. Try to push anatomy knowledge to actually help improve likenesses. Yeah. Do I have a Discord? No, I do not. I mean, I've been on Discord, but don't really use it that much. Just check out other people's stuff, but I don't really maintain anything of my own on Discord. I'm making a new game coming soon, and view your videos for renders. Venix, I'm not really sure what you're trying to say. Are you trying to are you trying to advertise something you're working on, or what? I'm not really clear on what your directive is here. Raphael, what's up? Thanks, Raph. Well, just keep practicing, man, and make some finished pieces, and you won't be a beginner for long. I think so much of anything, it's just commitment and taking the time to do it. And I'm as guilty as anyone for letting distraction get the better of me, or you know, you just get tired after a while of doing some of the same work, and you got to move on to other things or find a balance. But you know, in the beginning, you got to be disciplined. You've got to be focused and work hard. It's important. Let's see. Use the mouse for a week. Using a pen was game changing. Yeah. Yeah, you want to be using a stylus for ZBrush. You want to be just using a mouse. That's like trying to type with boxing gloves on, man. That's it's not really gonna work for long. You're not gonna be able to get the just the right feel, you know, and the pressure sensitivity and all that that a Wacom tablet can give you. Augustine, I guess you're asking me favorite brush. I mean, I don't really have one. I wouldn't say because they're all for different purposes, you know. But I mean, I don't know. Standard brush is pretty great. I mean, it's you can do a lot with it. I would say that that's probably the number one used brush, and yeah, it seems like pretty much everybody uses that, and it's pretty good. Gets the job done. I'm just deciding if I would want to keep that at all. I don't think I will. I'll just build this one up. Yeah, Elliot Goldfinger's Human Anatomy for Artists is super famous. I have a copy, an actual physical one on my bookshelf. Had it for years. It's great. Um, Vinix, you're asking how to add textures to what I'm working on currently? Well, this isn't going to really be... The primary focus of this isn't to texture it. This is going to be 3D printed. But, I mean, if you wanted to, you have to add UVs. All this stuff is too high res right now to really UV. It's really not. Like I said, you want to have like a low poly cage to UV. You want to unwrap it. You know, and if you want to do it really well, you'd probably do it in Maya or Rhizome. Yeah. And then from there, I mean, you could transfer your poly paint, you know what I mean? So once you've UV'd it, I mean, I could just do something with the clouds here quick, but it's not like, you know, you just poly paint. So let's say we filled this with this color, this material, and then we just say, oh, we wanted, for some reason, we wanted this to be red. So we would go here, we turn on RGB or mRGB, depending on if you care. If you need materials or not really, in this case it would only be relevant in ZBrush. But then once you've painted this, right, you have your UVs, let's say you like that, then you would come down to texture map, and you'd want to transfer this. So you'd create it, and you'd click on this button that's grayed out here that says new from poly paint colors. That create texture map, then you'd clone texture map and bounce it over here, then you come up here and go to export. So you select your texture map, export it out if you just wanted that one texture map, and there you go. You know, it's pretty straightforward. And you designate, of course, when you're doing your UVs, you'd say you want 2K, 4K, 8K, you know, 10K, whatever resolution you want. Is there any way I can export my fiber mesh hairs to Substance Painter because I want to feel very comfortable texturing my sculpt in Substance Painter? Sure. I mean, you can export your fiber mesh. You just got to make sure that it's geometry. So you'd have to. So the tricky thing with fiber mesh is, I really wish they would update fiber mesh. They would give it some added control and bolster some of its features, because it feels like they've just let it go. So if anyone can get word to Fair, please, can we update fiber mesh a little bit and make it a little bit more current? Give it some more controls. Like, you know what, fiber mesh could really use controls like the controls we have sadly, I mean, it sounds this way, but like the groom brushes are just so blunt. It's hard to really get that kind of control that you can have with like XGen or Natrix, where you can have strands that, you know, every strand controls like whatever 800 has a radius around it, right? And all the strands in a radius around that one strand are controlled by it, you know, or influenced it by a certain degree. Having some of that control after you've gotten your general length and everything out there would really help a lot. But that being said, yeah, you just want to make sure that when you've modeled your hairs, that you have them at least 3-sided, and, you know, decent amount of what's it called, the segments. And then you want to export those out as geo, and then yeah, you can texture them, add materials and everything you want in Substance from there. Excuse me. Using your model as an example, when would you use ZRemesher? If you're getting the major shapes and ZRemesh. No, I'm not going to ZRemesh this pretty much at all at this point. There's no need to. There's no need to ZRemesh, because a lot of this stuff is already, you know, at a good resolution. So like, for instance, like the man, he's already subdivided. You know, he's not Dynamesh, and there's no need to ZRemesh, so he's clean, good clean topo. You know, so there's no reason for me to ZRemesh him. I'll probably edit Dynamesh him at some point just to connect the head to the neck, you know, and connect this arm to this, because I took some elements from the first sculpture I did, because this is like a sequel. This is like a continuation of a previous sculpture I did. You know, she is triangulated, so she will get Dynameshed at some point here too. But as you can see, so that's messy geometry, you know. So I'll Dynamesh her at some point just to have. I might ZRemesh her, but I don't think so. Just because, I mean, if I do, I'd probably chop off the head and then, you know, Dynamesh that separately. Just because there's a lot of detail in there that I want to keep and that I don't want to lose, and that there's no need to redo because they're the same characters. So there's no need for me to you know, reimagine their faces. I just need to readjust maybe some of their expressions. Her expression may barely change. His will definitely change a little bit. Mostly like closing the mouth and maybe just like dropping the brow a little bit to be a little bit more focused and serious, and maybe tightening up the lower eyelids. You know, that'll be it. I don't know. Maybe I'll try different expressions. Maybe one with like a war cry. Maybe one just closed-lipped. You know, we'll see. But yeah, there's not really much. There's no need for me to ZRemesh them really. Maybe her. We'll see. But no, everything here right now is just going to be boolean together. I might decimate them, you know, at some point, because right now, like the dust cloud's 1,000,000. You know, and that doesn't need to be that high. I mean, it kind of does right now, but excuse me. Once I have it finished modeled, you know, once I'm done sculpting it, then it's just decimating it and boolean it together to the base, to the rock form down here. Yeah, so not much need for ZRemeshing here in this piece right now. The wings might be, these were already ZRemeshed, so I'll probably just subdivide this up and add more detail from there. I think this one's a copy of that one. No, okay, so this is an old one too from. So this is, oh yeah, this is subdivided from previous mesh. So that might be candidate for ZRemeshing and then subdividing up. But yeah, not a ton of ZRemeshing really. This piece just doesn't really require that. Use snake hook instead of groom brush
Okay, yeah. Does that work better for you? I've seen some people doing that. I'm still kind of lost on when I should ZBrush.
Well, I mean, that's the thing, and maybe you're going about it that way. You probably have a more rigid view of when you even need to use ZRemesher. So here's the thing: if you're sculpting it with not clean geometry, then yeah, you should ZRemesh as soon as you have the base form done. Easily. Duplicate your mesh and then do a ZRemesh, right? So let me show you what I mean here. I'll quick save. I'm trying to think of the best way. So let's say we'll use the dust here as a prime example. Let's say you have this high res mesh. There's no subdivision levels. It's dynameshed. It's way too high res, and you want to ZRemesh it so you have a low cage version and a high cage version, right? Or like a low cage that has all the subdivision levels. So you want to duplicate it. And so you got your form down. This is more than enough, I think. Like this is too much detail already for this because it's going to lose some of that to have a low cage version. But we're going to project it back in a sense. So from here, you want to go to ZRemesher. You usually want to choose, I think, one of these. I forget which ones. Detect edges is great. I think you don't want to have. I forget which ones you don't want to have on at the same time though. But there's one set. If you have one on, you don't want to turn on the other because it'll crash or it just won't work. I forget what it is, but I know freeze borders and something else are the ones you don't want to have on together. But anyway, freeze borders is another useful one, but we'll just roll with detect edges for now. We don't have any curves and adaptive. Yeah, sure, why not? We'll leave it at like 40 something. It's at 1 million, so let's go in this case for 20,000. You'll probably put it over that, but we'll see. And then just hit ZRemesh. And let it process through. What's the difference between Dynamesh and ZRemesh? Beginner here. Yeah, no worries. I mean, Dynamesh is just creating rampant polygons, right? It's just adding... It's almost like if you had a grid... and you just projected an incredibly dense grid straight through something, kind of. That's basically what it is. But it holds the form of everything. So it's almost like you took like a giant high-res cheese grater and you just pushed it through a block of cheese, right? Like a cookie cutter. It's like a high-res cookie cutter. Wham! You just take a screenshot of something and it's like you took a screenshot from every angle and made them all pixels or voxels. That's basically what Dynamesh is doing. Essentially, it's remeshing something from all angles and just keeping the form as best it can, depending on the settings you give it, right? And the settings are dictated by your sliders in here, and it's your model's proportion to this grid. When you turn on the floor, if this is filling up most of the grid, like either end to end or just in general volume of it, it's going to be a very high res mesh from a very low number in Dynamesh. So in other words, Dynamesh here, right now it's not Dynameshed, right? Because I ZRemeshed it. So now this is the ZRemeshed version. So now you have a much lower cage. You can see all the facets though. And then from here you can just hit divide, 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 divide. And now we're at 5 million, so we'll probably drop that down one, delete higher. So now we're at 1.1 million, and the original was 1.2. But you can see here I'm transitioning with solo on. You can see the difference between the two. You're losing that detail. Obviously, it could smooth it out because it created a low res version. So then, what you want to do is it's not hiding everything else. But all you would do here then is if you only turned on your ZRemeshed one and your original, all you want to do with this is you only want to have them on, and then you would simply go to project. So in your palette right here, in your subtool palette, you got project. And you want it like, if you want color projected as well, your texture, your poly paint, but you just want geometry. We don't really need much blur. And then you want your distance, 0.02 is fine. Mean, you can probably drop that a little bit. And then you would just say project all, and it typically would, you'd have some errors anywhere that's like really tight or where it's conflicting, like, because it's almost like a magnetism kind of. If you have areas that are really close together, maybe like in here or in this crease right here, you'd have stuff that would probably almost interpenetrate. So you want to fine gauge, you need to like go back and forth and see where you get the optimal amount of projection detail and And then areas where maybe it's too fine and it's just not picking it up, or it's too close to other areas and it's like having all these like polygons interpenetrate each other. That's where you can go in and then use like very select hand areas to add back in detail. Or you can use the extractor brush, but you could easily do the ZProject brush, where then this will let you hand do the projection, right? With this brush, you could just press it here and it will either, if you need to sub, because if let's say something's below the surface of something else, then you'd add Z sub so it would shrink onto it. Or if it's the other way around, if it's bigger than it, then you'd use Z add and it would inflate it kind of to match it would bring it up to match the detail of the interpenetrating or matching model, essentially. So that's how you would use ZRemesher and then projection to bring detail back. Otherwise, then with Dynamesh is simply just adding, like I said, like just a massive amount of polys to hold the form of something, and that's dictated by its proportion to the grid. So right now we're at 1.2 mil, and turn off projection here. And Dynamesh is at a low number. I would say relatively low. It's 336 there for resolution, right? So if I were to increase this to even, I won't do it because it would be too high. It would be no need. But if I put this up to like 1,000, this would be probably like 15 million, maybe 10 million, easy, or more. So but if I bring this lower, let's bring it down to like, what is that, 96, and I hit Dynamesh. See how low it went? So it went from this 1.2 to that, to 99,000. So that is dictated by its proportion to this grid, like I said, and your resolution slider. So this resolution was at 3 something? Maybe at 312. Let's see how that looks. I think that'd be fine. Yeah, 312 was a little low. It was like 3 something, right? It was like 320. Whatever. So that's really the differences there. Dynamesh, it's just mashing anything that's in this subtool or merge with it. That's like, even if I merge down another tool into this subtool, once you Dynamesh, they'll become the same tool. Before then, they're two separate floating objects, right? They could be intersecting each other, but they're not booleaning together. So I would say that Dynamesh, ZRemesher, and live boolean, they all kind of are like a Venn diagram. There's all points of intersection in what they do. Live boolean will take two objects that are intersecting each other that are different subtools and create a new subtool where they're booleaning together just at the point of intersection and leave everything else untouched, primarily, and leave all the rest of the polygons the same. So you'd want two groups or two objects that have very similar poly counts. The more similar, the easier it is for the software to boolean them together to make those calculations. The higher discrepancy in poly count, like one being a million polys and the other being like 25 polys, you're going to have a much harder time creating all these interconnections for the meshes to connect at their points of intersection. So that's something else to keep in mind with live boolean. But live boolean is great if you have two meshes that you just want to subtract from the other cleanly, or you want to join them together. Or create a mesh it's weird. I know some people would probably want to do this more for abstract art, but it's not a very typical operation. Or you'd want to create a mesh that is equal to the intersecting points. So if you have two meshes intersecting each other, and let's say this is the outside and the inside has these two areas doing this. When you create an intersection boolean, you're just going to have a shape like that, smaller, of the intersecting portion. So it's going to create a new mesh from just what's intersecting and delete everything else. So you got those three different options. You have subtract, which would be like creating a negative space, additive, which is combining those two together, and then the child of those two intersections, right? So that's what live boolean does. So they're all different purposes for each of those. So anyway, that's a long-winded answer to your question of what are the differences between ZRemesh, Dynamesh, and I added in the bonus party favor of live boolean.
Okay. Yeah, man. Hopefully it helped. Venix, ZBrush free. Not really, man. There's a demo you can download, but no, ZBrush is not free. But you have gotten free upgrades for a long time if you've bought it. I'm amazed they can still keep doing that. They should probably start charging for updates, I would say. I mean, I would have happily paid like a few $100 even just for the update for the cloth. The new cloth simulation's great. I mean, it's not Marvelous Designer, but I think it's gonna solve for a lot of things that a lot of artists would use Marvelous Designer for. It's just really it's really replacing that in a lot of ways for modelers. It's great. Cool, yeah. Glad I could be of service, guys. Glad I could help a little bit. It's funny, you know, when you get to a certain proficiency with something, you forget kind of what it was like to be in the position where you were lost with it, you know, after a large amount of time working in it. And I feel like I really got serious about ZBrush back in like 2012, 2013. I think it was like 2012. And then I just kept updating with every new feature. Then it wasn't as much to learn because up front there's a lot to learn because you're trying to learn everything, you know. Eventually you get it all sorted out, and then a new feature comes and you just learn that new feature, you know, if it applies to your industry or what you're interested in doing. And then that's it. So then you kind of maintain this base knowledge and you just kind of go with it. And it's kind of easy to sort of, just because it's sort of a painful experience, almost a negative experience of like being lost and confused and frustrated with not sure what to use. So I don't know, I kind of block out those memories and just think like, all right, here we are, let's move forward, let's be here now. But it's good to remember, it's good to try to go back to thinking of those hard times when it was frustrating. And we've all been there, man. You guys got to persevere, you know, you got to work hard. You got to stay positive and stay focused. That's what you got to do. So yeah, glad I could help. I just forget sometimes that there's a lot of people out there who are in the position I was in, and it's not always fun. It's frustrating sometimes. So yeah. And this didn't exist. We didn't have like live streams like this back when I was learning ZBrush. You know, I mean, we had courses that were live streaming, but it was like you had to pay and, you know, all that. You know, you weren't getting like a lot of free training like this now. There were YouTube videos online, but they weren't nearly as detailed and as helpful as you know, things are now. So you guys are living in a great era for learning online. Things have really changed in the last 15, 20 years. Especially 20 years, but I mean, even the last like 10 years, 10 to 15 years, things have really... I mean, because, man, when I think back to 2000, that's nuts. The difference in everything. Technology, availability of information. I mean, the internet was there, but it was still infantile, man. Like, really, things really have seemed to come to their own technologically only between, I would say, like the 2010s to now, you know. It's amazing just how much has changed in such a short amount of time. It's crazy. Yeah, for sure, Dougie. You're right. It's definitely helpful to have ZBrush running at the same time. It's so hard to keep up with all the new features for me, but following along with their demos helps retain the uses. Yeah, for sure. Any advice? I mean, I find it the same way, man. When new features come out, and I'm kind of like, whoa, it takes a bit. You have to use it. You have to practice. It's like anything, man. You just have to keep practicing and follow along slowly, and then things will just get faster and easier, of course. Any advice on sculpting, keeping motivated, or workflow? You know, man, it's funny you say that because it's like the last couple weeks have really just been a slog for me, and I'm not sure why. I don't know. It could be just a mixture of things, you know. It's just like the world is really frustrating right now. There's a lot of hardship going on everywhere. Work is really slow. You know, it's easy to get kind of down or a little depressed or frustrated, and or just not even that motivated, sadly. And it's terrible to say, but I'm being real. Like sometimes it's just hard to feel motivated to do much. You know, we go through ebbs and flows. Sometimes you know, most of the time I'm pretty productive in general, but the last couple of weeks especially have just been really just shitty. It kind of sucked, really. And it's not from any like major one event or any like major specific hardship. It's just in general things right now are tough and tight and not exactly fun. You know, I mean, there's some projects I have that are exciting to me or that are appealing, but it's still like there's this weird struggle between the guilt of working on those, but they're just kind of like semi-personal pieces and not bringing any income really, versus like finding more work and balancing that out with small projects I have that are paying, but they're just not very motivating, you know, or they're just low pay. So it's like, you know, so the struggle's real, dude. So advice on staying motivated, I mean, finding work you're inspired by, that's a huge thing, man. And if they're being paid for it, that's even better, of course. But that's really hard, right? That's like the dream. I mean, I'm just having a hard time really giving that. I mean, it's hard for me to say this with total belief because right now I'm going through a hard time myself with just like finding motivation and joy in a lot of what I'm doing. But I mean, there's stuff that, like I said, it's stuff I'm excited about, but then it also requires me like learning a lot of other elements in Unreal, which I don't know, and so that's a challenge right now, and it's frustrating. And I wish I would have signed up for the Unreal Fellowship. I'm so pissed at myself that I didn't, because I saw other people I know getting in, and I'm like, God damn it, I should have applied, because I probably would have got accepted. Because what I'm working on and what I'm trying to put into Unreal is extremely ambitious and extremely high quality, far beyond anything I've seen of the, not to knock them, but the previous attendance of the Unreal Fellowship. The stuff they produced and the stuff I'm working on is like night and day. I'm a huge stickler for just insane quality, and again, just stuff that will impress people, blow them away. So yeah, so I'm just frustrated, and it's just like, God, I just wish that I wish I would have gone after that when I heard about it. But c'est la vie. I think they're going to do more fellowship applications later, so I can go for that next time, I guess, whenever that is. Why did I color? RGB's on. But anyway, I would just say working on work you're inspired on, man. That's the best thing the best advice I can give, really. If I'm just being honest, you got to find stuff that really, you know, turns you on, that really excites you. It's easy to go with excuses as to why one feels unmotivated. However, all excuses are acceptable in the strange year 2020. Do you think is there a problem on using Sculptris Pro along with Dynamesh, or is it bad practice in the long run? I don't think it's bad practice. I think it's an interesting workflow. I don't really do it a lot. I feel like it's still I haven't used it enough to really say like, oh, I get it, because I get it, but I mean, it's like I haven't found a workflow with it that, you know, it's allowing me to say, well, oh, it's adding all the detail I want here, but it's taking away the detail I don't want any. It doesn't quite, and maybe I have to gauge it more. Maybe I just have to work with it more, but I just haven't found that I use it in a consistent workflow at all for me. Excuse me. I still prefer going along the regular route of just having traditional subdivision levels and, you know, working from there. Yeah, hopefully I get another chance. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I hope so. I wonder if one of the cloth brushes with a very large brush might make some interesting cloud shapes. Gonna have to toy with that. Yeah, it is interesting. I don't know. That's we could try. I actually haven't thought about using cloth for the cloud thing. I mean, I've used it for the cloth, obviously, but yeah, I wonder how that would work with these. Well, right now I think it's just using brush because I'm not doing the. I have to calculate, right? You have to do your dynamics. And we really don't want gravity, do we? I'm sorry if you hear background noise. I'm by my window. My window is by the outside door of this complex, so we got people yelling outside right now. I think that's it. So then, yeah, but I'm not sure this will really make much of a difference other than it's going to function just like a move brush. Yeah, and it's going to simulate like cloth, so I'm not sure that that's really going to... Yeah, I mean, that's... Because without gravity, you know, it's not going to have sags or many wrinkles. I want some self-collision. Yeah, I don't think that's really going to work for clouds. I don't think that there's really much advantage to using that in this case. I'm going to use the twist brush. Where are we here? Spiral. Yeah. And just want to double check one other thing. I switch days because normally I'm on Sundays, but tomorrow I'm actually celebrating my birthday with a bunch of friends, which will be fun. But that means that my normal time's Sunday, and Sundays I know I'm in the clear, and I'm pretty sure I checked the calendar yesterday, but I just want to double check and make sure that today there isn't anyone after me. Yeah, it's just me. Okay. Yeah, because the last thing I want to do is infringe on anyone else's time. So yeah, we're good. So yeah, I'll probably go a little over 4 because I was a little late in getting started. So right here I'm editing the direction of the spiral. So when you come into brush and you come down a twist, you've got a 0.2 twist rate. So then you want to invert that. So you want to go negative 0.2. And so now I'll have the same strength and it'll just turn counterclockwise. And it gives you some really beautiful curls that way. Now that looks a little funky, so we'll just use regular move to kind of smooth this out a little bit and give it a little bit more circular curvature. So it's looking similar to the last one I had, but it just flows in with this better, obviously, because it's all connected. I'm using some smooth. Yeah, it's looking better. I think I'm finding that happy medium now between the ultra stylized business I had going on over here and then more naturalistic kind of look, more realistic flow. Still feel like maybe this is a little too busy. I want to smooth this out, maybe simplify it a little bit more. I feel like it's just too like, you know, just too straight in there when it should be flowing out of the rocks and up. So I feel like all this kind of needs to be like shifted. It needs to be rotated a little bit more that way. Oops. No. Spiral. Other way. I might just do regular move then. Sorry, one sec. Just changing up some stuff here. And some music that was getting annoying and repetitive. You guys ever play? Anyone out there play the Deus Ex Human Revolution games? Human Revolution and Mankind Divided. Man, they were great games. There's some pretty awesome soundtracks though too. Actually, I heard some music that was reminding me of that, and so I'm like, I need to listen to those again. They really need to create a sequel to that. Those were great games. Really awesome cyberpunk style. But it was clean and minimalist, you know, it wasn't Cyberpunk the game, the 2077 looks great. I mean, I'm excited for it too, but as far as like the aesthetic, it almost feels like everything in the kitchen sink was thrown in there just to be diverse and to have variety, but it seems to lack a bit of this really focused art style that I really loved about Deus Ex, where there's a certain consistency and logic and like a language to everything, a visual language. I forget the artist's name, but I was friends with him on Facebook for a little while. We met a couple times at conventions, but I don't think he remembered me. That's probably why he unfriended. But his art style, man, he was art director, I guess. He has a French name. I can't remember. Probably something Pierre. Probably not. I don't know. But yeah, the guys, I think they were all from Montreal. They just did an amazing job on that game, and just everything was it just felt so cohesive. I mean, sure, things could have been better here and there, but like anything. But man, they did such a great job on the visual language and what it communicated, and how it just gave such a aesthetically pleasing, even though dystopic view of the future. You know, it was very cool. I really enjoyed those games. I wish they would just remaster them or just re-release them on new systems now, because to see them in like ray traced PS5, you know, RTX, PC, to see them really upped, it'd be awesome. And Michael McCain? I think is the Michael McCann, soundtrack composer. There's also a couple other guys, Ed Harrison, Sasha something. They did a really kick-ass job on the soundtrack. Nothing new in the chat, but yeah, if anyone has any other questions or curiosities, feel free to ask away. think I might try to do what I did last time. Not last time, a couple times ago. I'm going to open up Keyshot, let you guys see this in more photoreal setting. I got a reported problem. It's saying file sent to Luxion, fix the problem product. Okay, that's weird. And okay. I'm just gonna open up the last scene that I used with these guys. Let me find them. No, I guess I didn't save that last one. Alright, no worries. Let's just start with a new environment. Let me find. There was a great outdoor environment I used. I think this is it. Yeah. Sorry, one more second here. I'm just trying to line up everything, and I'm trying to remember how to remove, like how to increase the screen size of the viewport in Keyshot, because I don't use it a ton. I'm just trying to remember, where is that setting? Let's see here. Where's the resolution? Oh, here we go. Okay. There we go. All right. Okay, and we're going to send this over to Keyshot. It's primarily going to be one material, so that makes it easy. So I'm going to do external renderer. Okay, and let me just get some materials. So I'll show you guys what I'm doing right now. It's come on, work with me here. Sorry, the window's giving me some trouble here. to play nicely. So we full screen that. There we go. Okay. So when you bring it in, it doesn't have textures assigned. Often we'll do this where it kind of just repeats one weird thumbnail of a texture, right? So I'm going to do a couple things here. Yeah, it's not snap to the floor. I'm trying to remember where is that setting to snap it to the floor. It's been a minute since I've been in here. Position, there we go. Snap to ground. I guess it's on the ground there. Yeah, looks about right. Okay. Come over to materials. I'm trying to remember what I used last time. Was it marble or was it plastic? I think I made it plastic for the Mufasa sculpture I'm working on, and that had some nice quality to it. Yeah. All right, so there we go. Beautiful. Turn off that background. And then with our environment, what do we want here? We got that on. Product, interior, basic. Sure, let's do on some global illumination. Or if not, maybe not. A couple more rays. We're getting there. It's looking cool. I mean, it's always good to have real lighting on something because it just sort of gives you, obviously, a feel for what it'll look like in the real world. Just kind of helps you eyeball it. So I'm going to rotate this environment around a little bit. It's like I like it, but like I'm looking, for instance, like things that catch your eye. Like any classic artistry 101, the highest point of contrast is where the eye will go first, typically, naturally. For me, my eye kind of went to this because it's just so harsh and geometric and clear, and I want it to feel a bit more soft like this. So I'm gonna like probably inflate the interior there a bit, so when I dynamesh it, it smooths it out. So it's not quite such a harsh, crisp, clean, circular negative space there. Still increase this.
And I can edit this a little bit more. There we go. Just wanted to fill up this viewport. So I probably want to darken this material a little bit too, because it's like blowing out a bit with the highlights. There we go. Just want to tone that down a little bit so we can actually see the form a bit better. Nice. I love the magic hour lighting though. The low sun really just always makes everything look beautiful. The long shadows. Sorry, so what's going on? I missed some stuff here in the chat. What is this guy saying? A return trauma? What? Strama? It's Keyshot processor driven output or GPU. It's both. You can do. I'm doing GPU and denoise right now. If you look up here, but you can switch over to processor mode if you want. So right now it's doing processor. So, you know, you get varying quality with each one. Have a pretty decent processor, so it seems to handle this just fine as well. And GPU, you know, they both seem to handle it pretty fast, so it's sort of like, you know, this or that. Yeah, you can do either one with Keyshot. What's up, Frisky Boyd? Do I have any plans to texture this? Not really. Not much point, because I want it to be, you know, like a solid chunk of stone, essentially. That's what it was meant to look like. I'll show you the original here. It's funny, I do this like almost every stream now. It's this beautiful piece by Antonio Canova, excuse me, in the Louvre. Let's see if I found a good shot of it. Here we go. Want something large though. Well, there's a couple. Alright. Do that one, and I need to find another one that's high res. It's not super high res, but this will work. Alright. And then bring up my version. So the environment defines the lighting, not the background. No, environment defines the well, kind of both, really, because it's using a HDRI map to light it, so it definitely influences it. But you can always edit the lighting separately if you want, but then you just don't use an HDRI map. Okay, so here's the original piece. So I'm creating a sequel to this, right? So this was the original piece in the Louvre. Just wanted it to be more, just accentuate the genders, make him more masculine, make her more feminine, and really just make him look more like an adult, not so pubescent. You know, but they just look so young here, and the faces are just, you know, it's not like really hyper realistic. They're more like Michelangelo's David, you know, it's a bit more like iconographic, just a little bit more, you know,
mannequin-like, really. But I just love the beauty and the romanticism of this, and so that really captured my imagination years ago. And I kept telling myself I was going to do an anatomy study using these characters as that, and eventually I finally got around to it. So then this is my version. Obviously, like, everything's just more accentuated and more mature compared to the original. And this was all 3D printed on the Ultimaker 3 Extended. So those are the pieces. That's one of my raptors. So yeah, so there you go. So that was based on this. So I figured, why not do a sequel to this, you know? Use the cloth new features now in ZBrush that's perfect for this. So that's what I did for this. And I'm also working on finishing up my other piece that I meant to do for the beta, which just didn't get finished in time, which is the boy from The Last Guardian. All his clothing and everything else around him will be, a lot of it will be done with the cloth simulation. So anyway. So yeah, here we are. Things are looking good. But yeah, I think I might just change that. I'm going to edit that other curly Q shape on the front there, but everything else is looking cool. I mean, it's coming together. All right, well, I'm going to jump out of here then and put this on pause. Just find a spot to leave it, and we'll get back to this later. Alright, just going to go for a few more minutes here, and then we'll probably call it, as I've got to run. 10 out of 10. Thanks, guys. Beautiful. When did I do it? I did that like 2 or 3 years ago now. Yeah, it was a while ago now. I did it for a master class that I was teaching in at Wacom headquarters, the tablet company, Wacom tablets. I was invited to demo there with Ultimaker. It was a really nice experience, I gotta say. It was in Portland, and yeah, it was just. I was there to teach a masterclass on how to model and segment your model for larger than build volume printing. And I finished the model in like 2 or 3 days. It was an insane, like, just all day, all night, kind of all-nighters, just mad rush to finish it in time. I forget where I was working at the time, but it was like I had a bunch of projects going on at the same time.
But yeah, I was happy. I was proud of that piece. I was proud of the way it turned out. Again, not perfect. I always see flaws and things that could have improved. Cloth could have been better, and certain elements could have been tightened up here and there. But overall, I was happy with it, especially for the time I had to work on it and the time I put into it. I felt pretty good about that. Yeah, it's a piece I'm proud of. And it's stuff I should upload onto ZBrush Central really too. And I'm probably gonna just do this big dump on ZBrush Central here in the next month or so. Just start putting in a lot of this work that I really should have put up there a long time ago, because there's a ton of stuff that I just haven't. I don't know why. I guess it's just so many sites to keep up with, you know, and I've just become much more of a hermit in the last couple years. Just not, I don't know, resisting posting a lot as much as I probably should on social media and other areas, and that's probably why I'm just not as well known as some of the other guys out there. But yeah, I guess because I'm really not. It's funny. It's like a friend of mine was telling me, she's like, you've got to be putting your stuff out there more. It's just sort of the way the game is played, and I know, but yet, you know, it's just not one to be seeking. And it's funny because I mean, it's sort of like I want to work in filmmaking, right? That's what I want to do, and yet I'm not really like looking to seek popularity or fame. I just want to create great artwork. I'm not really looking for, you know, for praise so much as just to create stuff that really means something to people. But if you create things that mean something to people and you get your name out there, your name's going to get out there, I guess. So I don't know, but it's just popularity is not my. I'm not seeking that. I'm not chasing that really. It's more so just create meaningful work, meaningful art. But I guess in order to keep succeeding, you got to get your name out there more. So it's sort of a byproduct, I guess. So yeah, I guess I just need to be putting my stuff out there more often, and ZBC is a good place to do it. I haven't uploaded stuff to ZBC in, man, a long time. Yep, derp.
Why divide everything by polygroups? What do you mean? For what? You mean in general? This makes selection of anything easier. Gives you more control. It allows you to create UVs from polygroups. A whole bunch of reasons. Every subtool comes from a polygroup. I mean, when making a polygroup, it turns it into a separate subtool. No, polygrouping does not turn anything into a separate subtool unless you split groups. No. So, I mean, every subtool just starts as a different... I mean, it's polygrouped as its own thing, right? As its own unique group, but it's not, you know, they're separate subtools. So I'll take this for example, this duplicate of the earlier mesh, you know, I do this, so we have two different groups, and then I go over to hello, close, and we come over to polygroups, and then we just say where's a split? Or am I in the wrong spot here? Why am I not seeing this? Split, there we go, dir. It's in the subtool. So you go group split, it's undoable, you say okay, and now you have two different objects, right? So you have that, and you have this. But previously, you know, they were the same object. So that's the only time where you're going to have polygroups be two different objects. Otherwise, you know, whenever you polygroup something separately,
it's just a separate polygroup so that you can then isolate it, you know. So if you wanted to select that and then just isolate that and mask everything else quickly, that's what polygroups lets you do, right? So it lets you just select things very quickly. Yeah, I said it's good to make polygroups if you're hard surface modeling, because then it allows you to control precisely certain areas very quickly, right? You have very fast control over X, Y, and Z. You know, so here we have that. So let's say then you wanted to, you know, move that out. You know, immediately for hard surface, you have clean lines extruded from that point, right? Or at least, yeah, moved out. So you can do the same thing with anything, you know, as far as hard surface goes. So I would say, you know, polygroup by polygons. You know, if you have a very low res cage, it's better to polygroup, you know, different areas and different polys, so then you can just extrude from them very quickly, or just mask and then, you know, do whatever operations you want on those very specific areas. Just enables more control for everything you want to work on. So anyway, we're reaching the 420 mark here, 421. So I think I'm going to save this, and we will call it a day. I feel like I made a lot more progress on this than previous streams, thank God. But yeah, these clouds are still just taking forever. Sorry if that's boring for anybody, but hopefully it was entertaining and useful for some. But yeah, I'm really feeling like we're getting there. It's really starting to find itself as far as the base is concerned. And I feel like even though there's small touch points connecting the wings to the dust cloud, and then also the feet, and then her arm, these are all like 5 different points of connection. That should be more than enough to hold up what will be a hollow plastic mass above her. So we're getting there. We're almost there. And it's going to look cool from a lot of different angles too. I'm liking this, the way it's starting to flow. I think I was looking at it from a side view. Yeah, I think I might just expand this out a little bit more, just because the way it looks from above is pretty awesome too. Alright guys, well, that'll be it for today's stream. Thanks so much for joining me. I appreciate it. Hope everyone's going to have a great rest of their weekend, and yeah, hopefully this was fun for you guys. If you guys want to follow me on social media, it's always appreciated, especially on my Instagram, because I am trying to grow that. And this is me on Instagram. And last question, what's up? And you guys got my site from before, but just in case, this is my site. That. Augustine, what's the last question? Mr. Herrera. Okay, next time. Well, all right, I can stick around if you have a question, but if you're good, then we're good. If you want to ask, you can ask, but otherwise, yeah, I'm gonna head out. Let me know.
Is that a no then? I guess that's a no. All right, guys. Yeah. Guess that'll be it for today. Yeah, if anyone has any extreme questions they need answering, you can also hit me up on email too. Oh wait, okay, so there's. I was wondering when you use Dynamesh, those tools close to each other merge. You said that can be avoided by changing options, or you have to repair it. I was talking about projection, I believe, because Dynamesh will just it'll push things together. You want to heighten your resolution. That'll reduce the chances of close elements being merged together, being like kind of melted together. But if you increase your resolution, you'll avoid that much less. It'll happen a lot less. Or you can projection. I was talking about projection. If you project your detail from ZBrushing, I think you're confusing two different things. Like when I duplicated the smoke, the dust. And then I was talking about projection. You can project detail onto each other, but sometimes projection, if two elements, like two humps, are close together to anything, and they're the same mesh, they can be projected, and it's like magnetism. They'll get projected like this, because it'll be trying to draw these polygons to match these, and these polygons to match these. So it'll do this. It'll just like intersect. So to avoid that, you might want to just do some projection. You might want to save morph target beforehand. So you'd want to do, you don't want to come down here. Sorry, let me get this Keyshot paused and out of the way. So just real quick, if you, let's see here. So if you wanted to create, like I said, it's just for ZBrush, So if you had this piece here, and let's say I wanted this to be, let's say this was the duplicate of the other one, right? And I wanted this to, I'll just duplicate the original so it's less confusing, I guess. So you duplicate this, and then I want to create a low cage out of this, so I would do a ZBrush. Right. So we do this at like 7, ZBrush. This will take a second. Okay. So if you have this other mesh and slow cage, right? And you want to project it, right? You want to get the detail back from the other one. So you want to create a low cage. Now you have a low cage because the other one was Dynamesh and now this one isn't. You have this, oops, subdivided up, but you still want to get the detail back from the other one. All right, so I'll hide everything else here. I'll do this properly now. So we just have these two things visible. You see a ghosting of one and the other, right? When I turn on transparency here and ghost. So you have these two, and you want to project detail back from this one to your low cage one, the one with subdivisions, right? Usually you want to start in your lowest subdivision and then go up from there. But sometimes, like I said, projection can cause problems. So what you want to do ahead of time is set your morph target. Or you could do layers, but it's a little bit more involved. So you want to come down to morph target, say store morph target. So that'll hold your original form, right? And now we can say, in this case, probably don't want to start at the lowest, or start at somewhere in the second highest or whatever. So then here we want to say project, right? So you can see the pinkish reddish color is the original, and our white one is the one with subdivisions. So I'm going to close split, come to project. We don't want much blur, so let's put that down to 0. We don't need color. Our mean can lower that so that it doesn't pull as much in other directions.
And distance is 0.02. It's fine. Say project all. Boom. So now we've projected. And it's looking okay, actually. I don't think we are encountering that issue I was talking about right now. Probably because I avoided it. Maybe if we increase the mean. And we've got both in there. Say project all again. Yeah, we're still not getting any weird intersection. Go up higher. Project all again. And go to the highest and say project all again. So it's just matching the meshes, basically. It's right. It's merging them. So now you can see that they're almost perfectly matched, which is great. That's what you want. Sometimes, like I was saying, though, you'll have areas, really tight areas in here that would project through each other. And it seems like this one really, unfortunately or fortunately, it's not having that problem. But sometimes it happens. Like when you have areas that are just very close to each other, they will just intersect. And that's when I was saying you could use your morph target to go back to the original shape and then hand do it yourself. So let's say if like this area was just pushed in a little bit, right? So I just used the move brush to push it in, and I wanted to match it to this area. I could try to pull it out to get close, maybe even overcome a little bit, kind of get it there, but it's not quite. Then you can use your ZProject. And then you can, in this case, since this is overriding it, and it's underneath the layer we want to match, we would go to ZAdd, and then use ZProject, and just brush over this. And now, we isolate it, you can see it matches there practically perfectly. And then this area is a little over top, right? It's overriding the other layer we want to match, so then we use ZSub, smooth, and then maybe a little ZAdd again, a little more ZAdd here. A little Z-sub here. And this is how you can sort of manually do projection now to match certain areas. Right? So you see they're pretty close. I mean, there's obviously areas here we have to touch up because I used the move brush. Oh, wrong one. But that's what I was talking about with using the ZProject brush to kind of give you your, touch-ups and whatnot. So it's a pretty simple process when you know the steps, and it's just sort of, again, paint by numbers. Just follow this order, this order, this order, this kind of thing. So yeah, there you go. Anyway, all right, guys, that'll be it for today. Hopefully everyone had some fun and learned something. Yeah, and I'll see you guys, I think next Tuesday is the next time I'm streaming. So, all right, everybody, be well, take care, and follow me on Instagram if you want to know next time I'll be streaming. Sometimes things change, like today. I was supposed to stream tomorrow, but got a birthday party to put together. So, all right, guys.